the Bossed Up Podcast, episode 528. I'm your host, Emily Aries, the founder and CEO of Bossed Up, and today's episode will resonate with you if, like me, you're feeling a bit burnt out these days. Maybe you've been having escapist fantasies about leaving it all behind, or perhaps you've been daydreaming about quitting that day job you've been hugging onto or clinging onto for dear life. Whatever your current state, mental health wise or employment wise, today's guest, Jillian Johnsrud, has some really interesting things to share about her philosophy on taking frequent mini retirements. Jillian herself never expected to be able to retire early, as has been a big trend circulating in the personal finance world over the past decade or so. So instead, she hatched a plan to retire often. Inspired by the idea of sabbatical years, she set out to sprinkle retirements throughout her life. At 40, she's taken over a dozen mini retirements. These allowed her to pursue dreams like living abroad, traveling to 27 countries, adopting 4 kids plus 2 biological kids, investing in real estate, and touring the US in a camper. Jillian has taught, coached, and wrote about mini retirements for almost a decade. She hosts the Retire Often podcast and is a popular speaker and consultant for mini retirements. She lives in Montana, where she spends time in the garden drinking tea, and she's taken some time to talk to us today. Jillian, welcome to the Bossed Up Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being here. I'm so excited to dive into the topic of your new book, Retire Often. Tell me first how you came to write this book and become sort of the queen of not early retirement, but frequent retirement.
Yeah, retiring often. And it was kind of that idea. I didn't anticipate being able to retire early. That seemed fantastical and impossible. Like me and my spouse at the time, we had a pile of debt, like $55,000 of debt, and we both chose low earning professions. So like not the winning combination. But I still had these like goals and these dreams and these really ambitious things that I wanted to do. So these idea of mini retirements or like sabbaticals, maybe this is the tool. Like maybe this is the container that we could put those goals and dreams in that was accessible and affordable, like available to us.
Yes, and possible. And like there's something about this concept that validates what you just described with your many ambitions beyond your career ambitions. Like there are other ambitions, like to spend quality time with the people in your life or unlock adventure, as you put it. Like those ambitions matter. And yet, particularly in America, it seems like we've been conditioned to just accept our fate as career professionals who have to slog away for 20, 30, 40 years, and then we can go, recreate an identity beyond that career. What's broken about that paradigm?
I mean, that works fantastic for companies. They can extract all of the value, and they don't care if you have a breakdown. They don't care if you bankrupt your personal life or have a health crisis or like don't, have conflict with your kids because they got what they needed. But it's not really working for everyone else. And I would argue long term, it's also not working for those companies because when you run your most precious assets into the ground, does that make sense? Like, I have a coaching client right now that is in a tremendous asset and saved her company a tremendous amount of money. And I just remember thinking, okay, so people aren't machines. Like, I don't want to make people machines, but if she were a machine with the amount of money she has saved her company, why would they not invest a year's worth of salary into maintaining and repairing that machine? You save your company $60 million. Like, why not spend 200 or 300,000 to upkeep the machine that has worked so well? And it's crazy to me that we will treat and invest machines better than our human assets.
Yeah, when you said like your best assets, I was like, we're talking about humans, human capital.
Yeah.
Which in this age of AI, it's starting to feel like we really don't value human capital, right? Like every company right now is looking at all the people they employ and saying, can I somehow train a large language model to do your job? So there's just this like deep-seated insecurity that I'm sensing that came up in our listener survey around, this like constant fear of layoffs, this constant fear of scarcity in the job market. The retention index is higher than it's ever been since they started measuring it. The perception that people have is that the job market is really treacherous. And so how do we square this concept of like, just take sabbaticals, like give yourself a month off regularly with how do I also show my organization, my company, or my job prospects, future employers, that I'm committed in this scarce environment that's so full of insecurity?
AI is going to be fantastic at doing routine things. It's going to be fantastic at doing low level labor. And that means that that human capital, you have to show up extra human. You can't show up like a mediocre machine. And one of the things I love about mini retirements is that it helps you recover from burnout in a way that people come back energized. They come back motivated, full of gumption, full of creativity, full of motivation. They come back at their best human self. And I think to be competitive and to stand out in this job market, you can't just trudge into work and put numbers in a spreadsheet and like just slog through your career. Like you have to bring the human capital. You have to bring the creativity and the motivation and the gumption to do the things that AI can't do.
That's a really powerful point. I think a lot of people feel disengaged, and a lot of my listeners feel like, oh, I just want to feel inspired again at work. And we can sort of wait for our employers to design those conditions for us. Or to your point, like we can take some ownership over that responsibility of our own feeling of engagement in the world, in our life, right? Like in our identity beyond this sort of like going through the motions corporate drone that so many of us can become. So walk me through what these career sabbaticals have looked like for you, for starters, just to paint a picture of what we're hoping is possible for my listeners today. And then let's break down how to make it so. But what have those look like for you?
So I define a mini retirement, my own personal definition, with three characteristics. It's a month or longer. I find a month is that minimum effective dose. But if we start thinking about this, a month is possible. It's feasible. Like you can negotiate this off. Like you don't have to quit your job for this. It's not super expensive. So it's a month or longer, stepping away from your 9 to 5, stepping away from your primary career. So sometimes people do other professional things during their mini retirements, but you're stepping away from the normal way you make money right now. And the third thing is to focus on something that's meaningful for you. And when we look at it through this frame, we might have a couple opportunities for this. We might be switching jobs. We might be moving across the country. We might need to take a leave of absence to care for our parents. We might get laid off. Like we might have kids and step away from the workforce for a period of time. Life might provide some opportunities naturally. And my hope with the book is that people will have this framework and these ideas of how to add some intentionality to those natural opportunities. And for me, I've taken a dozen of them and they have spanned the gamut. I think mini retirements are very much like a Swiss Army knife. Like they're a multifunctional tool. There's lots of different ways you can use them. So I've used it to travel through Europe, to do road trips with my kids, to learn tango, to build a food forest, to do a month of intensive therapy, like all sorts of things. But it's finding the thing that you need for your next mini retirement. Because I didn't name the book Take One Epic Massive Mini Retirement in Your Life and Do All the Things. No, retire often. Retire often. This is going to be something you're going to do repeatedly. So pick the thing that makes sense for the next one, either financially, on a career side, or personally. Like, what do you need right now in the season of your life?
Yeah, that's so interesting. I wish this wasn't so radical, and yet it really does feel super radical, right? I bet our European listeners are like, "What is wrong with
I know.
Americans?" Like,
Why is this even a
taking
conversation?
a month off is just untenable. Yes,
That's August.
literally, like a month off feels so out of the norm in America. right? And like I've taken 2 weeks off and I'm like, wow, that was luxurious. So let me ask the question of like the multiple whys behind a mini retirement, because you've alluded to a few. There's a couple of instances where you've talked about burnout and mental health, and I think that is an interesting one to sink our teeth into. But then there's also like adventure that feels rather different than a mini retirement to recover from or prevent burnout. So, what are some of the reasons that you encourage people to take these mini retirements or that you have yourself?
Yeah. I wouldn't say encourage. I would say let's look at maybe what you need, what you value, what's missing in your life right now to sort that out for yourself. Because, like, I don't know you, you know you. So, for a lot of people, that is burnout. I encourage people to try to limit the scope. Pick one thing, two things, three things. It's really easy to be like, I have 47 things on my bucket list and I'm going to do all of them. But what ends up happening is that you don't make very much progress on any of them, actually. And there's this interesting phenomenon where if you have too many goals, you're not sure what you should be doing right now in this moment, but you're pretty sure it's the wrong thing. Like whatever you're doing, it's the wrong one. And so creating these distinct phases that allow you to lean in, like phase one, I'm going to recover from burnout. So if you're like, I want to take a nap, you're like, yeah, that's what I should be doing. That's exactly the right thing right now. So recovering from burnout, time with people they love, slow travel is a big thing. Stuff that you can't fit into nights and weekends. Like you're not going to hike the Camino on a 4-day weekend. You're not going to do a massive road trip with your kids on a Thursday night. Like you need to create for some of these goals, some of these dreams, you need bigger chunks of time or else it passes you by. And I think that's another powerful motivation for people is that there's seasons in life with expiration dates. And if you don't lean in and do the thing, the opportunity is going to expire. It will not sit on the shelf for 40 years. Like I did a 10-week road trip to 10 national parks with my 5 kids in a pop-up camper like many years ago. And I remember we were maybe on park number 7, like Yosemite, and my kiddos were like 2 to like 11. They were all itsy bitsy, like strollers and bags of Cheerios and like the whole thing. And I remember thinking, oh, I can't do this in 20 years. In 20 years, they'll all be in their 20s and their 30s and they'll have careers and family. They're not going to all gather in a pop up camper with me for 10 weeks. Like,
Yeah, they'll have free will.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. So there's those moments, whether it's our own health, our parents, maybe right now your parents are young enough to travel with you in Europe to do a bike trip through Croatia. But if you wait 20 years, maybe not.
Totally. I'm way too hormonal to go here because you are just like hitting me right in the heart because my littlest one just turned 1 like a week ago. And you're just like, wait, where did the time go already? Like all of this is happening so quickly. So I'm so glad you mentioned your 5 kids to make this sound practical because I can just hear my fellow working parents right now who are paying record amounts of money to like navigate childcare just so we can work full time, just so we can pay for childcare, just so we can work full time, just so we can pay for childcare. And we're just on this like hamster wheel that feels really hard to step away from. How do you pull the brakes on that? How do you, particularly as someone who has responsibilities, who has financial commitments, maybe you're caring for elderly parents, maybe you're not a parent yourself, maybe you've got it just like there's so much momentum in capitalism. How do you take your power back and ask those bigger picture questions of like, what am I going to miss about this season? How do I make sure I live it?
In my book, I set up 4 steps. And the first one is thinking about this first mini retirement because you need to have that vision, because that vision is going to give you the motivation. Because the cost of mini retirements, here's the catch, they're logistically challenging and they're emotionally fraught. So that's the price of admission. And we need something to pull us through those logistical challenges and that emotional fraughtness. But once you start to see how this is possible or how it could look like, it could be a lot more affordable than you think. You mentioned childcare. I interviewed someone on my podcast that him and his wife had 2 kiddos, little kiddos, lived in Boston. They both had jobs, they both had careers. It was great. They moved to France for a year a year in France with their 2 little kids and lived in this, like, small provincial town, like, I don't know, Beauty and the Beast, like
I was about to say that's a lyric that brought me back to 1992.
Yeah,
Thank you for that. Yes.
yeah. But in Boston, they were paying $40,000 a year for childcare. Their year in France was $40,000. They lived a year abroad just with the cost of 1 year of childcare. And so sometimes we think, well, this will be astronomically expensive. It might be cheaper than your real life.
Real life is astronomically expensive.
Yes, it is. And there's so many ways that we can hack this. I just interviewed someone that him and his fiance spent 6 months traveling abroad, Southeast Asia and Switzerland. For each of them, they spent $9,400, not per month, for 6 months. For the both of them, they rented out their furnished apartment in Austin. It was cheaper for them to travel the world than to live at home. So I think we have to kind of reimagine of like, what could this even look like? How is this maybe more possible than I've imagined?
Yeah, as someone who paid $57,000 this past year for childcare for 2, like, that is not surprising to me at all. I guess the question that hangs in the back of my mind as a good feminist, right, is we've long told women that there are real consequences to taking time off. And I think we're having this big societal debate right now between the trad wives and the girl bosses. By the way, all those trad wives on Instagram are entrepreneurs.
Yeah, they're girl bosses.
They're not trad wives, yeah.
Yeah.
But they're selling this idea of tradwifery. And so it's like the fear is the economic consequence of taking time off. That, it's debatable how well established this is in the research, but there's a real mommy track that we know that women who take time off to care for children or care for loved ones can face when on-ramping back in the paid workforce. They're not making, Social Security contributions during that time that impacts retirement earnings down the road. Taking time off from your career can inhibit your ability to earn more later. So I think the question I'm getting at here is this worth the potential risk from your vantage point? And do you think women face more risk than men who take many sabbaticals?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. And I look at it like risk reward. So the risk of taking a year off, 2 years off, 3 years, that's a high risk. And maybe there's some reward for having that time with your kids for sure. But there's a high risk and a high cost. The risk of taking a month off is pretty low, but there's a massive benefit. And so if we can skew the risk reward, because the reward on that side, I think about like a 400-meter dash. If you were a runner, and all the runners are about the same pace, but if you go and do something for a month and you come back and you're 10% faster, you don't win 10% more races. If you're 10% faster, you win all the races. And in some businesses, in some professions, being the best matters and it's highly compensated, and being the best is highly rewarded. And when we think about AI, and specifically, like you mentioned, mothers who they're oftentimes women statistically carry more burden outside of the home. So do they have the same time and opportunity for classes, for reading books, for professional development, for that rest and recuperation that makes their male colleagues excel? Well, what if we could give ourselves the gift that the men naturally get from being married and like using all of that labor that their wives provide them? We could create more quality in the workforce. And when women come back in their full strength and their full power, like I used to think when I was younger, I used to look at middle-aged people and be like, they're so boring. They're so boring. They don't have goals. They don't have ambitions. They're not energetic. They're not passionate. And then I hit 40s and I was like, oh, we're tired. We're just so tired. We're not boring. We're tired. But what if we weren't? One of the interesting comments I get, I'll meet people, like I go dancing and I do things, and eventually some people are like, oh, do you have kids? And I'm like, yeah, I've got 5 kids. And they're like, what? Wait, what? Because I don't seem like I have 5 kids, because I'm not tired, because I have enthusiasm and I'm fun and I have energy and I'm creative. And they don't like, they're like, if you're middle-aged and you have kids, you're just worn out pulling yourself through life. So I think that advantage is actually much higher for women than it is for men, because men have more free time, they have more leisure, they do less domestic labor. So they have that built in.
Okay. This is like, you're blowing my mind right now, Jillian. This is like the radical act of feminism in the form of taking our leisure back, taking our life back. How old are your kids now?
Oof. My oldest turns 18 today.
Oh, happy
I know. And then
birthday.
we've got the next one's almost 17, and then 12 and 13-year-old girls. So that's a lot. They're in junior high. And then I've got a 9-year-old. So we're in this whole we're in the thick of it.
Good for you. I'm impressed and amazed and in awe. And I haven't slept through the night in a year. So I'm just also like, that sounds like maybe you're getting some sleep. Like, I'll dial in for that. But also, there's something very radical here that you're describing, which is like women, moms, take your life back, like through this radical act of demanding leisure. And not just like one night a week. Like, I'm trying to like sneak out and ban it. I like to call it boycotting bedtime. Like, at least like once a month or once a week, ideally, like getting out of the house and leaving my husband to do double bedtime with the two littles while my girlfriends and I go to yoga. That feels radical. So like, work me up to negotiating a month off. Like, what does that look like? Because I'm intrigued, and I know a lot of listeners are going to be like, how do we make this happen?
So it's a lot more possible than people assume. There's two things that you need to do, but I have so many people, because I've coached hundreds of people through this, that are like, well, my company doesn't have that policy. Nobody does this. Like, I work in the government, or I work in this industry. Like, it's not common. And like startups, like, these two steps, try these two steps. The first one is you have to craft the story. What is the narrative of how you're going to pitch this? Because if you don't create the story, someone else will backfill it for you. So let's get ahead of this. And I institute memoir rules in that two things: it all has to be true. It cannot be the whole truth. The whole truth is too big. It's too vast. If you tell all the details, you're going to lose the plot. You're going to lose the story. So let's narrow it down to these four things.
The truth, but not the whole truth. Got it.
All true, not the whole truth. So these four things. One, it has to be positive. Do not go in with like, I cannot stand y'all's faces anymore. I need a break from you. You smell. The second has to be interesting. So not like, I need to go eat Doritos for a month. Find an element of your mini retirement that's interesting. The third, make it specific. This isn't as intuitive. So instead of like, I want more time with my kids, I'm going to do a road trip to this many national parks with my kids because it's something that my parents did when I was younger. Like, it's a very specific story which draws us in and makes people more emotionally invested in that outcome.
And I would imagine like less suspicious.
Yeah.
Like, there's not this, like, to your point, they're not filling in the gaps with their own narrative of this person's a flight risk, this person's not dedicated, this person's not committed. You've got a positive pull towards something, not running away from something. That's so smart.
And then the fourth one, frame it as a one-time thing. This is not like if you say, yeah, every summer I want to go to the lake house that my family owns. They're like, because they don't want to sign up for this every summer. This is a risk. This is an experiment. They can't commit to a lifetime of this. So make it a one-time thing. I want to go hike the Camino. Or, hey, my 40th birthday's coming up. I've always wanted to run an Ironman. I've been training. I need a couple weeks of intense training. I want to go, it's happening in Hawaii over my birthday. I've got a week of leave. I just need 3 weeks unpaid. Can I go do this thing? So you frame the story with those four elements. And then the second part is that you have done the mental, emotional labor of thinking through all of the challenges that your boss will think up. Think through all of them, bring all of the solutions to those challenges, and then you're going to articulate the challenges for your boss. Don't make them tell you. Show that I've thought this through. I'm empathetic enough to understand the challenges. I'm willing to have these difficult, awkward conversations about like what could kill this amazing dream I just pitched you, because it gets them in this really creative, collaborative energy right away instead of like them being like, oh, I don't want to be the bad guy, but I have concerns.
Yeah, I love that strategy. And from a financial standpoint, you've already alluded to unpaid time off. Like there's a lot of great stuff in here. I know you just keynoted the FinCon conference as part of your launch for this book. What are some of the I know we don't have as much time as you could probably talk all day about the financial aspects of this, but like from a practical standpoint, some of the ways in which you've seen folks take mini retirements, how do they fund it? How should we think about wrapping our heads around the finances?
Yeah, so a couple things. If you've got 47 dreams, in step one, I go through why don't we sort those by cost? And what if you're early in your financial journey, front load the affordable ones? Don't start with an around the world cruise. Like I took a month off to learn tango and I gave myself $1,000 budget. Like start with the $1,000 one. Like learn guitar, do a road trip, go stay with friends and family, like go camping. You can start with affordable things that you might actually spend less than when you're at home. If you're road tripping and staying with friends and family for a month and you're renting out your house, like there might not be any additional cost to that for sure. And then the other thing is like looking at your opportunity. And I'm not really one to, because it's such a bummer to be like, don't eat your Chipotle bowl on Friday at your desk so that when you're 65, you can like buy a new water heater. Like it's so lame.
You're not going to take my latte away from me? Okay.
Oh my gosh, it's so lame. So instead, I think about what if we delay it slightly, but for the same thing, but maybe it's an upgrade for you. So instead of Chipotle burrito bowl for 2 years at your desk on Friday, that's 100 burrito bowls. What if you're in Mexico in 2 years for a month eating street tacos? And that $10 you spend on the burrito bowl will buy delicious street tacos and a margarita 3 times a day. And so you're not denying yourself Chipotle burrito bowls. You're saying, if I have to choose between sitting at my desk and eating Chipotle burrito bowls or learning Spanish for a month in Mexico eating street tacos, I want the second one more. And you're just pushing that expense into the future.
And you talk about like budgeting for this in very practical terms. Obviously, what we're talking about here is even a relatively cheap mini retirement is better than no retirement, like no mini retirement.
Absolutely.
We're not saying this is going to be Instagram worthy luxury month-long vacations. We're saying give yourself some breathing room, even if it's a little scrappier, right? We're talking RVs. We're not talking like, what's the name of a fancy hotel? I can't even think of one right now, but like
Yeah.
Ritz-Carlton, right? We're not
Yeah.
staying in the Ritz-Carlton for a month. What do the numbers look like in your budget or in the folks who you coach?
So I say max budget as a starting point, do 50% of your take home pay for that month. So if you take home $5,000 a month, budget an extra 2,500 for whatever this adventure is. If you bring home 10,000, budget an extra 5,000 a month for this adventure because it kind of scales with your lifestyle. But the reality is if finances are the limiting factor, do affordable things. Like it doesn't have to be expensive. And if you think about the idea of retiring often, you're not doing all the things right now. So start with the affordable ones and work up to the more expensive ones. Like I talked about that kind of risk reward. Let's start with a low risk, high reward. And then as you gain that confidence and that clarity and you get in the rhythm and you're motivated and you're understanding how this works, because we're not good at things we've never done. You've never done this. You're going to have to work through the logistical challenges and it being emotionally fraught. But each time you do, it's going to get better and you can scale it up and you can do more extravagant things. I had a couple I interviewed on my show that did a month. They did a month and they just went to a lake house the first month. They were super burned out and she trained for a marathon and they just hung out. But then they came on their way home, on their road trip home, they were like, that was life changing. We're doing this every year. And so they came home super motivated and they decluttered their house and they took out a small section of their house and they made it an apartment inside with its own separate entrance. They invested the money. And now that one apartment will pay for every mini retirement indefinitely. Indefinitely. But you don't have the motivation to do that before you've experienced the mini retirement.
Yeah, so interesting. I mean, the thing that originally came to mind for me was that also this doesn't have to be an annual thing, right? We want it to be frequent, but it doesn't have to be every single year. So if the budget looks weird one year, your earnings are impacted, like put it back in the budget next year. So, we're talking about like, if you need longer to save up for this, just don't make it 40 freaking years. Don't make it 4 decades, right? Like that would be an improvement upon the model that's been set for us.
I think minimum I would suggest once a decade. I find that after about 15, 20 years of hard, continuous labor, the human body hits a wall. Just in my observation, like that's when people start to experience that burnout in a way that they assume is them aging.
Yeah.
They just assume, well, this is what it's like in my 30s or this is what it's like in my 40s. But I've seen people take mini retirements and emotionally, energy wise, roll back the clock to where they were 40 and they're like, I feel 35. Wait, another month in, I feel 30. And then they start to feel 25. They have that motivation, that optimism, that excitement, that vision that they had, like that zest for life that they had for 20 at 25. They're not feeling it at 45. And you come back into work with that energy, but the skill set and knowledge of a 45-year-old and just crush it.
I love that. I need to play this clip for my husband. Brad the dad has 40s hit him hard. And also the addition of our second has hit him hard. We just haven't slept through the night in a year. But so that's hitting us both hard. But I think you're really on to something there. And it sounds more within reach than we might think. One thing I definitely wanted to mention and talk with you about before we part ways was creative ways to access leave. So you already mentioned like PTO, sure. Unpaid leave, sure. What other options do you see people leveraging that you want to make sure folks feel entitled to?
Yeah. One, think about natural career breaks. If you're going to be between jobs, if you get laid off, if something bad happens, if you need to take care of parents. But the other thing that I see, especially women struggle with, is valuing their mental health like their physical health. Every time I speak at a conference or a convention, someone raises their hand and they're like, I'm really burned out. Is it okay if I take FMLA for my mental health? And I'm like, oh, is mental health real health? Like, does it matter? Yeah, it does. And they're absolutely combined and one affects the other. But there's this hesitation because especially women will say, and men, but they'll say, but I'm doing it. You know what? I'm getting up, I'm getting out of bed, I'm showing at work. Maybe I'm not 100%, but like I'm surviving and my head's above water. Some days I feel like I'm drowning, but for the most part, it hasn't killed me yet. And that's our threshold. It has not killed me yet. Therefore, I should continue in this. And I compare it to like if you found out you had stage 1 breast cancer and the doctor's like, hey, we should seek treatment because it's way more easy and effective if we seek it soon. And you're like, you know what? I think I'm okay. I'm getting out of bed. I'm getting to work. I don't feel awesome, but like I'm pushing through and like my work really needs me. I'm so important. Like I'm so important and essential at work. And then you wait till it's stage 5. And that's a really complex problem. That's a hard problem to solve. The likelihood of you fixing the problem is much lower. Why not get ahead of it early? Why not say, you know what? My mental health is health. I want to be 100%. It's like if you got injured at the gym, just being like, you know what? I'm just going to keep coming to the gym. I'm going to keep working that muscle. Yeah, I'll drag along for 2 years. I'll nurse this injury ongoing forever maybe, or just like leave the gym for a week or two, heal up, recover, come back 100%, and like don't don't live your life. There's this thing that I talk about with my friends, like some people have a tremendous capacity to suffer. And that's such an incredible gift. Like maybe we just had like that perfect sprinkling of trauma in our childhood where like we can do really hard things for a really long period of time. And that's amazing. But sometimes we take that and be like, man, we're so good at outrunning bears. I think I'm just going to outrun bears all the time. And it's like, or we can leverage that sometimes, but we could also like take care of ourselves too.
Yeah. I feel like very called out by this in a beautiful way. In that this like martyrdom kind of badge of honor thing that we do is very common. Jojo wants to say hello on the mic. Thank you, Joe. Especially in motherhood, right? Like our capacity to just push through is insane. But then also how absurd it sounds when you liken it to a sports injury, how ridiculous it sounds when you liken it to cancer. And yet so many of us are doing that exact thing. Jillian, you've inspired me. I feel like I'm going to leave this conversation and go talk to my husband right now about like making this happen. Where can my listeners learn more about you and your coaching and all the great advice you've got if they want to do the same?
Yeah, retireoften.com. You can get the book, coaching, consulting. I have a newsletter that's very random and unhinged. So if that's your sort of thing, it's there. And then on social media, I'm at Jillian Johnsrud.
Amazing, Jillian. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
For links to everything Jillian and I just spoke about, head to bossedup.org/episode 528. That's bossedup.org/episode 528. While you're there, you'll see a blog post summarizing Jillian's key points and a fully written out transcript, if that's your thing. And now I want to hear from you. As always, the conversation continues after the episode in the Bossed Up Courage community on Facebook and in the Bossed Up group on LinkedIn. What resonated with you in today's discussion? What do you make of this concept of mini retirements and sabbaticals? I don't know about you, but I'm like motivated more so than ever before to make this a reality in my life. Or maybe I'm just so burnt out. I'm like, sign me up for whatever. I need to take some time. It's just that time of year. So if you feel me, I want to hear from you what's going on in your neck of the woods, in your career. And if you've successfully taken a career sabbatical, tell me about it. As always, you can email me at emily@bossedup.org. My inbox is always open. And until next time, let's keep bossing in pursuit of our purpose. And together, let's lift as we climb.